Let's do what we can. Hello and welcome to an AVForums video overview of the Marantz M1 digital streaming integrated amplifier. And it's not a comparison, because if you're watching this video with a view to me making a decision as to which of these two is better, it's not going to work that way, and I'm going to try and explain why. We're going to look at the Musical Fidelity B1xi at the same time. The reason we're going to look at it at the same time is, one, because it's here. It arrived at the same time. And two, it's a demonstration of just how broad the integrated amplifier market under £1,000 is. And broadly speaking, if one of these products ain't going to get you, the other one is. And we need to cover why that might be, how that works, which side of the fence you might come down on, and then look at that in the wider context of other amplifiers that we've looked at. We've done another video where we compared a far more direct comparison between the Riga Brio Mark 7 and the Audiolab 6000A Mark II, and try and make sense of it all after that. Anyway, what have we got? We've got the Marantz M1. This exists alongside Marantz's more conventional amplifier range, and when I say conventional, I mean it. Some of Marantz's amps haven't functionally changed what they do in 30 odd years. At the same time as that, plenty of their new arrivals are all-in-one systems in all but name. Nevertheless, they are conventional amplifiers. 430mm wide, they've got controls on the front, they are fundamentally amplifiers. And into this space comes the M1 with a different job description and a different way of going about doing that job description. You will note that this is not the most dynamic box we'll have looked at on the videos. There are in fact three controls, a play, pause and volume up and down. The reason for this is absolutely straightforward. Marantz sees just as many of these being stuck in ceiling voids, stuck away in cupboards, out of sight and out of mind. And with that being the case, there's absolutely no cause for it to be covered in controls, because it's just not going to be controlled from the front of the unit. Essentially, what it is the HIOS streaming platform mated to an amplifier. We'll cover the amplifier in a bit. HIOS is not my favourite streaming platform. Essentially, the basics are all there. It will read your own library. It can read thumb drives stuck into the back of the unit and so on and so forth. And it partners this with support for Tidal, Spotify, Deezer, etc. And newly added via the connect function in Qobuz rather than HIOS itself is support for Qobuz. So far so good, but if you compare HIOS to the Blue OSs of this world, or even the WIM app, I just find it a bit lacking. It's not the fastest thing going. On tablets especially, there's a huge amount of free space and not a lot of information contained within that space. I simply don't find it that rewarding an item to use. This being said, aside from a slight hiccup when it did a software update on first install, it has been entirely stable and it's done what it's asked to do. It also works perfectly happy on Roon, which I'm fully aware is not the cheapest system going, but does offer an excellent user experience. It'll work perfectly happily on that if you want it to. Essentially, this is the main point of control for the M1. There are then additionally extra connections on the back. These are pretty limited. There is a subwoofer out, and then an RCA analog line input and an optical input and an HDMI ARC connection. The HDMI ARC connection is the most interesting. Now, so we don't get into any confusion about this, this is a 2-channel stereo product. All it's ever going to do with this HDMI signal is do a 2-channel stereo signal, but it will take the multi-channel output from a TV and it will sum it itself. This doesn't sound like a significant or exciting difference, but based on testing standard stereo ARC systems and a couple of these now on Macintosh products in particular, I have to be honest, there is something to be said for letting the product do its own summing to stereo. The performance is different. I was playing about with an episode of Foundation and significantly preferred it when it was being done via this than another ARC product, not this, incidentally. There is also the option of Dirac as well, which I believe is a first for a Marantz stereo product. The license is not included. The standard cost of, he stares painfully at his notes trying to work it out, $159 for correction up to 500 Hertz, or $249 for a full frequency sweep. Most of the things that we need to say about Dirac have already been said. It's extremely good, and what makes it extremely good is that it's a combination of extremely comprehensive measurements and a user friendliness that means that you're likely to actually try and make use of those measurements and try and make use of the information that it gives you. It's a very useful thing to have. It doesn't really put the Marantz in a unique category though. NADs, or NADs, C700 V2, at the time of me recording this video in early August 2025, the UK distributor for that has got the price of that down to 1,150 quid, so £250 more than the Marantz. That also has Dirac, that also will do the same stunt with Dolby Digital, and if you want, then also send the signal to a set of wireless rear speakers as well. It has more inputs, it has a display, and it has a remote control. A fairly useless remote control, but a remote control. The Marantz can be made to respond to IR commands, but they have to essentially be borrowed off unused codes that you've got on remote handsets that you might already have. It's not quite the same thing. Amplification is Class D. It feeds into the fact that this may be stuck somewhere in a relatively limited space. You don't want something running like an oven under those circumstances. 100 watts into 8 ohms, 125 into 4. This isn't the largest number going, but it should be sufficient for most requirements. It's certainly been sufficient for all the testing that we've done here. It's a little bit hard to get excited about the Marantz in quite the same way as you do some other products because of this very, very sort of subtle and understated nature, but it does grow on you. It is a pleasant thing to use. It is extremely stable, and the thing that really swings it is that despite the fact that it has nothing in common with any other Marantz amplifier I've tested in recent years in terms of its topology, there's no HDAM modules, there's none of the stuff that you normally associate with a Marantz in this Marantz, it still sounds like a Marantz, and that's not a bad thing. It's a warm, engaging, sort of friendly sound, but when you actually want a bit of grit, bit of gumption, bit of drive, it's got it in spades, and it's been something that I've found thoroughly enjoyable to live with. I've generally used it with a pair of Mission 700 stand mounts. They live upstairs. Not wildly different in price terms. It's not a sort of unrealistic combination of units. The Mission is ever so slightly forward. Some people would say more than ever so slightly forward, but I'm going to stick with ever so slightly forward. And I found the combination of the two units to be extremely enjoyable. This is hi-fi for people who aren't interested in hi-fi. And really, that's not me being derogatory. It's perfectly reasonable to not be interested in hi-fi. It's a money pit and a sinkhole. You can buy this, get hi-fi performance, and not really have to concern yourself with some of the sort of faffing and niceties that come with hi-fi products. If, though, you want to combine more items with your amplification, that's where this comes in. Musical Fidelity's B1xi is the new entry-level integrated for the Musical Fidelity range. It's £700. It's £200 cheaper than the Marantz. And it very pointedly doesn't have any streaming on board. Musical Fidelity actually has a piece on their website saying why they don't do it. And you can read into that. You can say, well, okay, that's legitimate. Or you go, well, that's smacks of laziness. The decision is yours. What you get is more connectivity that allows you to tailor how you want to use the Musical Fidelity. There are 4 analog line inputs, 3 on the back as RCA connections, 1 on the front as a 3.5mm connection, a very good moving magnet phono stage, and then a smattering of digital inputs controlled by an ESS DAC, optical coaxial, HDMI ARC, and a genuinely rather good Bluetooth connection. The HDMI ARC input is quite odd, and it threw me the first time that I used it. Essentially, quite like the Marantz, the front panel controls will have no effect whatsoever on the Musical Fidelity once you are using the ARC connection. It essentially is the equivalent of a direct input to the power amplifier, and then it slaves its volume to the television. Now, downstairs is a 24 model Philips 909 65 OLED. Once I realised that the volume starts from 0, it's worked really well. Integration has been really slick. I've had a bit more of a problem upstairs with the older LG B8 OLED because the volume has a nasty habit of starting at maximum, which is not ideal at late night sort of levels. Nevertheless, once you get used to it and you don't have an LG B8, actually it's worked extremely well. And it's a useful fitment at this price. Only Audiolab 6000A Mark II has come in at, with a similar sort of spec and had that sort of functionality. More importantly, this is a hi-fi product with hi-fi sensibilities. You can sit and listen to it, and if you like what it does, you can then travel up the Musical Fidelity range and experience much the same thing, but with more bells and whistles. And it's a really clever and well thought out introduction to the Musical Fidelity range. These two products, as I said right at the beginning, are not direct competition, but they do reflect now just how wide a spread of things claiming to be amplifiers we have between £400 for the WIM Amp Pro and say £1,000 for the sake of argument. It's a nice round finishing point. Cambridge Audio CX81 Mark II, we've done a review of that. Essentially, you can choose anything between a stripped back analog only amplifier or something which is, broadly speaking, an all-in-one system, really, when it comes down to it. You choose based on what you've got to connect to it, how you want to use it, and broadly speaking, just how far you see yourself going after you've purchased the particular amplifier in question. I'm a hi-fi person. I've got an enormous collection of bits and bobs here, many turntables, so on and so forth. This speaks to me. It's a genuinely enjoyable product. In some ways, it's more fun than the Audiolab 6000A Mark II, if not perhaps not quite so technically accomplished. Certainly speaking, the digital board isn't quite as good, but there's plenty of power and a really lovely phono stage, and it's a pleasant and enjoyable thing to listen to. The Marantz is just something where if you've got a whole household of people and they really can't be bothered to come to terms with you and your peculiar habits and buying these things, it just works. And particularly if you spring for Roon, or you just take the sort of more blunt approach and only ever use it through Qobuz or Tidal Connect, and then it just automatically switches on when you turn the television on, it just unobtrusively goes about the business of delivering some decent sound. When we get to the awards section of the year, I have to try and make sense of this and decide who's going to win what and how. You don't need to concern yourself with that. You just need to know that within the remit of amplifiers, there's now pretty much something for all seasons, and these are just two more additions to that already impressive selection of products. There is already a review for the Marantz on site, which I would love you to read. I still write better than I speak. If you've enjoyed this look at many different amplifiers, thank you very much. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you again soon. Goodbye.